Hello everybody, myself Dr. Shivakumar Bisrapur, Associate Professor, Department of Education, Karnataka State, Akkamadevi Women's University, Vijaypura, Karnataka State. Today we shall discuss about what is language and how the language is stated by some experts and unique features of human language. This is about the CTE course in that block 1 and unit 5. So let us see definitions of language, the origin of language and the uniqueness of human language. So as we know that language is uh, somewhat the acquisition of skills to speak, read, writing, and listening. Let us see what the expert says regarding this. Man is man through language alone, as said by Humboldt. What then is this unique facility called language, which sets us apart from other creatures, helps us respond to our environment, and above all, enables us to reflect on the very essence of our being? Language is that system by which sounds and meanings are related, as stated by Fromkin and Rodman in 1974. Language, communication, and human needs are unquestionably linked. Human beings have various needs: individual, social, economic, political, and cultural. And it is to fulfill these that man needs language. Even the youngest infant expresses its needs, which are primarily biological to begin with. As the infant grows and his or her needs become more complex, so does its language. From the stage of whimpering in discomfort or gurgling with pleasure, the individual reaches the stage where he or she starts reflecting on his or her needs. Language does not exist in a vacuum. It serves and is molded by other systems in the human mind. Since language is used to convey ideas, the structure and function must reflect these ideas. Besides, since it exists within a complex social and cultural system, it is molded by these aspects as well. Language pervades and is pervaded by all aspects of our lives. Let us see some of the definitions given by the experts. Language is a term which, due to its range of applications, has prompted innumerable definitions. Some of these focus on the general concept of language, others on more specific aspect of a language, and yet others on its more formal features like phonology, grammar, and semantics. Let us see the definition of language. Language is a purely human and non-instinctive method of communicating ideas, emotions, and desires by means of voluntarily produced symbols. This is stated by E. Sapir in 1921. And second definition, as given by G. Trager in 1949. I repeat, G. Trager in 1949. A language is a system of arbitrary vocal symbols by means of which the members of a society interact in terms of their total culture. And next definition, third definition, N. Chomsky in 1957. I repeat, N. Chomsky in 1957. A language is a set, either to finite or infinite, of sentences, each finite in length and constructed of a finite set of elements. So, next definition, fourth definition given by R.A. Hall in 1964. Language is the institution whereby humans communicate and interact with each other by means of habitually used oral, auditory, arbitrary symbols. So, how this statement by R.A. Hall uh, uh, works out and what it leads to? Number one, the words, their pronunciation, and the methods of combining them used and understood by a considerable community and established by long usage. And second one, audible, articulate, meaningful sounds as produced by the action of the vocal organs. Then, where is this origin of language? Language seems to be a highly developed form of animal signaling. But how and when did we start to talk? Numerous philosophers have speculated on the origin of language, resulting in the extensive collection of theories that we have with us. It is a question which even today attracts much attention. In the early part of the 18th century, theories of the origin of language proposed that language was of divine origin. According to them, man was created, and at the moment of his creation, speech was provided to him as a divine gift. In the biblical story about the Garden of Eden, God created Adam and speech simultaneously. For God spoke with Adam, and Adam answered him. The language they used was Hebrew. So, other cultures too propagated the divine origin of language. The Egyptians, for example, considered themselves the oldest civilization, and therefore there was the original language passed down through their god ancestors. One of their rulers, by name Samnistitians, is said to have tried an experiment to test this theory. I repeat, one of their rulers, by name Samnistitius, is said to have tried an experiment to test this theory. He had two babies from an ordinary family raised in isolation. When they were 2 years old, the babies abruptly said because, which, so what they have highlighted because, which in Phrygian means bread. Mathematicians believed that this proved his theory, and Phrygian was the original language. In the latter part of the 18th century, speculation on the origin of language moved from the realm of divine origin and fancy to what is called the organic phase. With the publication in 1972 of John Gottfried von Herder's On the Origin of Language, according to him, language was too imperfect to have been a divine gift. It came about through man's own groping efforts towards reasoning. Language, he argued, was the result of an instinctive impulse similar to that of an embryo pressing to be born. Darwin argued against any distinctly human quality of language. In his Descent of Man, 1871, he proposed that there is only a difference of degree between language of man and the cries of animals. According to him, man's language, like man himself, came from a more primitive form, probably expressions of emotions. For example, a feeling of contempt is accompanied by the action of puffing air out through the nose or mouth, and this makes sounds such as ho or fish. Darwin's contemporary Max Muller disagreed with him and scornfully named this as a pooh-pooh theory. Muller proposed what he called the ding dong theory of the origin of language. So, according to his theory, there was a mystic correlation between sound and meaning. Primitive man had an instinct by which every impression from without received vocal expression from within. Just like every object, when struck by a solid body, gives off a particular sound, so also man's mind gives off a particular response to the various impacts to the world made upon it. So next, Muller proposed another theory called bow-wow theory. What is that? Bow-wow theory, also referred to as onomatopoetic. Anamo, what is that? Onomatopoetic. So I repeat the spelling ONOMATOPOEIC. T-O Poetic. What is that? Onomatopoetic or echoic. The theory suggests that first words were imitative of natural sounds, the cry of birds, the call of animals, etc. Although Muller rejected this theory too, it is true that virtually every language has some percentage of echoic words in its vocabulary. Babble. What is this? Babble, rattle, ripple, etc. are some English examples. An argument against this has been that we hear and imitate the sounds of nature within the limitations of our first language. So modern theisists propose that speech is not only, the speech is not simply a manipulation of physical organs. Concomitant psychological development. What is this? Concomitant psychological development was essential to the development of language. Each person has different impressions of the world that he or she perceives. In order to formulate a credible theory of the origin of language, it is important to learn about the psychological development of early man. Anthropologists believe that the factors that led to the development of the species Homo sapiens also led to the development of language. His upright posture gave him additional visual range. His eyes became stereoscopic, further improving his vision. The cerebral cortex, virtually non existent in the lower creatures, developed tremendously in evolving man. It was with this major development that the human being graduated to reasoning powers and began to speak. Language evolved from the human need to communicate. It developed in a social situation and was needed to spread information amongst the members of a group. Each benefited from the other's experience and communicated through language. Subsequently, the whole working of the human society through a division of labor has been due to language. With an increase in the complexity in society, there was a concomitant increase in the development of language. So then what is language? When people come together, they use language. We use language to communicate our thoughts and ideas amongst our friends and acquaintances. It is this facility which is said to distinguish humans from animals. But we rarely reflect on this superior ability that we possess. This is what the basis of our humanness. And normally, when we say we know a language, it implies that we can speak to and be understood by people who know that language. This means that we are able to produce certain sounds which are mutually interpretable as having a certain meaning. Since all of us know at least one language and are able to use it without making much of a conscious effort, why do we need to discuss it? Exactly, this is the objective of the unit, this discussion, to make us aware that the ability to carry out the simplest conversation requires a profound knowledge of the language of which speakers are unaware. And what is this knowledge of the sound system? When we say we know a language, we simply that we know the sounds which are a part of that language, and by default, which sounds are not. This fact becomes quite obvious when speakers of a particular language pronounce words from another language. For example, a speaker of Bengali, Assami, or Oriya is not able to articulate the distinction between the sounds B and V. B and V. B means Bombay and V means Vellore or visual, or V means we can. We see, for example, V means you can take wow, VW, or virtual. V means virtual. Okay. When they say the word Vivek is comes out as Bibek, the very fact that they mispronounce it reveals their conscious knowledge of the fact, conscious knowledge of this fact. They are able to distinguish it when they encounter it in the written form or when another person is speaking those words, but are unable to articulate the distinction properly. It is not enough that speakers of a language know only the permissible sounds of their language. They also possess an unconscious knowledge of the permissible sound combinations and also the positions in which these sounds can occur in a word. When a speaker of one language encounters a word which has a different sound combination than that which is permissible in his or her language, she or he will in all probability mispronounce that word. Next comes knowledge of the meaning of words. Knowing a language also means that you know how to relate sound to meaning. That is, apart from a knowledge of the sounds and sound patterns. It is important to know that certain sound sequences signify certain meanings. This is obvious to us when we hear a foreign or unknown language. The string of syllables that the speaker of that language produces are incomprehensible to us, but the speakers seems to be conveying a lot to each other. This then also tells us that the relation between sound and the meaning it signifies is arbitrary. So many languages share many sounds, but the way in which they combine them to form words and the meaning that they assign to even a similar combination is not the same. This at times can have amusing consequences. For example, Bulgarian and Hindi share a sound sequence kutia, which in the former means a box, while in the latter it refers to a female dog. This shows very clearly how sound and the meaning attached to it is arbitrary. The corollary to this is that a particular concept will be represented in different languages by different sound sequences. There are some words in most languages whose pronunciation suggests a meaning. These are referred to as onomatopoeic or echoic words. So, sounds of these words imitate sounds of a nature, but even here there may be a variation from language to language. The most well known example is the cock's crow that we uh, refer to the other examples in our couple of seconds ago. Then comes knowledge of appropriate social context. Now, just being able to create novel sentences is also not enough. One must know exactly where they can be used. That is, one must have a knowledge of the appropriate context for their use. This is the social aspect of language. To communicate effectively, we should know what kind of response is expected in a particular situation. For example, we respond by saying the weather is very fine. When someone asks you your name, it would not be appropriate, although our answer would not be grammatically incorrect. Words and tones have the property of bringing to mind associations with things and ideas, and communication is possible to the degree that the speaker and hearer have similar associations. Words and tones are therefore symbols with meanings. Next comes the uniqueness of human language. It is a language which, more than anything else, distinguishes human being from the animals. We frequently refer to language as being unique or human. Oh, and what then is human about human language, and how is it different from the forms of communication produced by other forms of life? It is generally accepted and understood that language deals with communication. Now, the nature and scope of this communication is influenced by various factors: physiological, environmental, social, and need based. Increasing complexity of information content calls for a correspondingly complex message generating system. Therefore, species in which behavior is mediated by complex social interrelationships evolve by virtue of this fact. A communication system which can fulfill the needs generated by this level of interaction. The word communication is related to common. It means the act of making communication and applied especially to information and feelings. The only form of gift that remains with the giver even after he or she has passed it on to another. Language, spoken and written, is man's chief instrument of communication, but it is not the only use. Gestures have a similar role as we have seen, and so do other forms of symbolism. Flowers have meaning. Particular clothing or ornament is a device to make known one's affiliation and loyalties. Thus, communication is a pervasive manifestation with many forms. Our concern here is primarily with spoken language, but to understand it, we need to see how it is related to other communication behavior. Okay, next, animal communication. It is evident that different animal species show different forms of vocal and gestural behavior. One of the most remarkable species is the bee, which is capable of communicating with great accuracy the location of a find of nectar and by carrying out a series of motions which have been described as a dance. The bee moves in alternate directions around a constant axis so as to describe an approximate figure 8. The axis of movement indicates the direction of the find. The speed of the circling is related to the distance, and the agitation of the animal reflects the abundance of the find. While the dance is being executed near the hive, the other workers bees form a circle around the dancer. And next, another form of bee communication occurs when part of a colony is ready to swarm. The bees assemble at a convenient point outside the hive, apparently long enough to establish a center of operation. Bees that fail to find a suitable location also return. If favorable reports come in from a number of directions, the swarm shows indecisiveness, moving to one side and another until a weight of opinions has formed in favor of one of the locations. In their communicative behavior, bees do not employ vocal sounds, but the buzzing made by the vibrating wings apparently plays a role in conveying excitement and emphasis, perhaps comparable to degrees of conviction in human beings. In contrast to the phonetic ability of the lower species, man is definitely superior. Many animal species pronounce only vowels and even here perhaps only one or a few particular ones. Some manage one consonant, especially fricatives of outgoing breath. Man's superiority consists in being able to manage a great number of resonant, fricative, and stop consonants to make click and in breathed sounds as well as out breathed ones, and above all to produce complex combinations and sequences of varied sounds. Instinctive or intuitive versus formal communication. Communication is normally an intentional and planned activity. However, at times we say things we do not mean to say, or our tone of voice tells things we had not planned to reveal. If we trace communication back to the lower animals, we find that there can be such a thing as instinctive communication. If one member of a species experiences pain, fear, or any other emotion because of a physical stimulus and utters a cry, makes a grimace, or moves away, and if this reaction evokes and analogous or related emotions in other individuals, an act of communication has taken place, whether or not any conscious intention has been involved. Human spoken language constitute such codes. Thus, two main levels of communication can be distinguished. The instinctive found in all animals and the formal, conventional or arbitrary found only in man. The formal system of communication in man include gestures, language and pictorial symbols. Art forms are complex behavior systems involving features of intuitive and formal communication. Design features of human communication. Let us see design features of human communication. There have been a number of attempts to determine the defining properties of human language, and different lists of features can be found by different writers. We have taken six core features and described how they are manifested in human language. We have also shown how these features are uniquely a part of human language and unlikely to be found in the communication system of other creatures. Let us take arbitrariness. And in animal communication, there is frequently a connection between the signals and the messages sent. For instance, an animal who wishes to warn an opponent may simulate an attracting attitude. A cat, for example, will arch its back, spit, and appear ready to bounds. Okay. In human language, the reverse is true, and there is no natural link between a linguistic form and its meaning. That is, the symbols used are arbitrary. For example, there is no connection between the word dog and the four-legged animal it symbolizes. It can equally be called kutta in Hindi and chain in French and in German. Now let us see cultural transmission. It is said that human beings are biologically programmed to acquire language. However, they learn a specific language only by exposure to that. That is, language is handed or down by one generation to another. This can be described as cultural transmission. A child brought up in isolation away from human beings does not acquire language. In animal system, a far greater proportion of communication is genetically built. For instance, a cuckoo will sing a fully developed song even if it is never hears another cuckoo sing. Bee dancing is substantially the same in the bee colonies in different parts of the world with only small variations. Now let us see displacement. Most animals can communicate about things in the immediate environment only. An animal utters its cry of danger only when danger is present. It cannot give information about a peril which is removed in time and place. Human language, on the other hand, can communicate about things that are absent as easily as about things that are present. This property of human language is called displacement. Next comes uh, duality of structure. What is this duality of structure? So somewhere it is pronounced as a duality of structure. So the pronunciation is like this. It is a duality of structure. Animals have a stock of basic sounds. A cow has under 10, while gorillas and chimpanzees have between 20 and 30, which they can use only once. That is, The number of messages an animal can send is restricted to the number of basic sounds, or in the more complex systems, a few simple combinations of sound, and there is no known internal organization within this system. Human language, on the other hand, is not a haphazard list of individual sounds. Most sounds become meaningful only when they are combined with other sounds. This organization of language into two layers, a layer of sounds which combines into a layer of larger units such as words, is known as duality of structure. A communication system with the duality is much more flexible than one without it because many more messages can be sent. A similar kind of internal organization occurs at the sentence level. Human beings can automatically recognize the pattern nature of language and manipulate structured chunks of language. For example, the beautiful woman gave me flowers. That woman gave me flowers. She gave me flowers. Human beings can understand that these sentences are structurally equivalent. Animals, as far as we know, do not use structure dependent operations. And next comes productivity or creativity. The most important distinction between human and animal communication is that human beings are essentially creative in their use of language. On the other hand, animals have a limited number of messages that they can send or receive. For example, bees can communicate only about nectar. Dolphins, in spite of their intelligence, use a large number of clicks, whistles, and squawks to communicate merely about the same thing over and over again. Let us see other features. Human language does have many other properties, but they may not be unique to it. Some of the other features are vocal auditory channel. Human linguistic communication is typically generated via the vocal organs and perceived by the ears. So next one, broadcast transmission and directional reception. What is this? Let us see. A signal can be heard by any auditory system without earshot, and the source can be located using the ear's direction finding ability. Rapid fading. Auditory signals are transitory and do not await the hearer's conveyance. Uh, and next one, interchangeability. Any speaker or sender of a linguistic signal can also be a listener or receiver. Total feedback. Speakers hear and can reflect upon everything that they say. Unlike the visual displays often used in animal courtship, which are not visible to the displayer. Next comes specialization. The sound waves of speech have no function other than to signal meaning. So this is what we have discussed about the origin of language and the meaning of language and other aspects of language. So philosophers and scientists have long debated on the nature and use of language, and even today there is no consensus as to when exactly man started to speak. So, several principles operate at the level of learning of language. These involve knowledge of the sound system and that of the meaning of words and appropriate social context of use. So, hope you understood the origin of language and meaning of the language and the definitions of language. Don't forget to wear the mask, maintain social distance, and don't forget to subscribe this channel. Okay, so I hope you have got the information, and I request all of you to follow COVID-19 rules. Thank you very much. Thank you now.